Again with another video. Thank you all for watching. I greatly appreciate it. So, it is now official. Sweden is now a part of NATO. Very interesting development because it took Finland quicker to join. Sweden was held up by Hungary and Turkey for both of their own reasons, but they were just stalling. But ultimately, Turkey did it a while back, and Hungary was the last one to ratify. So Sweden is now part of NATO. So let's go over to Google Maps, kind of figure out the situation now in Europe. So all of the Baltics over here, all of Scandinavia is now part of NATO. Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and the Baltics: Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Which means the Baltic Sea is pretty much NATO-controlled territory. The only parts of the Baltic Sea that are Russian, we're going to measure distance, pretty narrow, 50-ish miles, Gulf of Finland, and this oblast of Kaliningrad, about basically 80 miles here, 50 miles here. So Russia only has about 125, 130 miles of coastline on the Baltic Sea. So of all this, their presence is pretty narrow, because now that Finland's joined, Sweden's joined, the Baltics have already been a part of it. Now the Baltics aren't so isolated, because before, since Sweden and Finland weren't in it, the Baltics were kind of, if you look at it, it's kind of the weak point, especially the Suwalki Gap right here. If you're unfamiliar with the Suwalki Gap, that is this little section right here, named after the Polish city of Suwalki, from Kaliningrad to Belarus. It's only about, roughly about 50 miles. Yeah. So from Kaliningrad, which is Russian, to Belarus, which is a close ally of Russia. So if they were to push that Suwalki Gap, you can, and separate Poland from the Baltics, that could be an issue. But now that Sweden and Finland are part of NATO, that the Baltics aren't the Achilles heel anymore. I don't even know if there would be an Achilles heel, because you pretty much got most of Europe in the NATO alliance. You got the entire Scandinavian bloc, the entire Baltic bloc, Germany, Poland, much of Central Europe, Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, Turkey, a few countries here in the Balkans, Slovenia, Croatia, and I think maybe one or two others. But more or less, if you look at the map now, it's pretty NATO-dominated territory in Europe. So let's head over to images. So let's take a look at this picture. So it's most of Europe, with the exception of Ireland, Austria, a little bit of the Western Balkans, and Belarus, Ukraine. So if you look at the map, it's pretty NATO-dominated territory. NATO is now pretty much taking over much of Europe. Only exceptions are Western Balkans, Austria, Ireland. Ireland has no intention of joining. Switzerland is always neutral. Belarus is a close ally of Russia, so that's not going to happen. Ukraine, there's conflict there. Moldova, there's breakaway in Transnistria, which I've already talked about in previous videos. Always tensions in the Caucasus. There's Russia annexation of Abkhazia and South Ossetia. So Abkhazia is this part right here. So if you remember Sochi Olympics, that was very close to Abkhazia, and South Ossetia is the two regions in Georgia that is under Russian control. So, yeah, if you're NATO, you're geographically pretty solid. You control the Bosphorus. You control much of Mediterranean. I mean, most of these countries in North Africa don't particularly have the greatest navies in the world. Egypt's is decent, but there's no real navies to pose a threat in the Mediterranean other than the Russian fleet in Syria. I think they're. I think it's Latakia. I think is the name. Yeah, Latakia. I think is where a Russian flotilla is. So if you're NATO, you got Scandinavia, the Baltics, and the Baltic Sea is basically now NATO Lake, which is very interesting. So Russia only has this part up here in the Gulf of Finland, a little bit right here in Kaliningrad, and Russia also pretty much is in control of Belarus. So Sweden joining NATO is very it benefits NATO geographically. So yeah, it's happened. It took a little bit of time, but Hungary finally ratified, and NATO has joined. I think it's 32 members now. So yeah, it took almost a year and a half. 30 out of 31 ratified. Hungary just did it. A bunch of different articles, but yeah, NATO grew. I think it's 32nd member because I think either Finland was 30 or 31, but I don't remember. So very interesting development in Europe, especially since Sweden was neutral for 2 centuries. So the political chessboard is changing. So with that, that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Deuces.